I took an oath of office to the Constitution of the United States. I did not take an oath of office to a president or a political party. And that's what guides me, is I'll do what I think is best for the country. Doesn't mean I'm right.
When we were talking about arranging to have you come here, I came across those words and I said, wow, this guy's the real deal. Did they accuse you of just leaving them because you supported the war, but then you saw what was happening and you were troubled by this and you took it very personally, I knew. And even though you've said to me, you can't take politics personally when they disagree with you, because you're a veteran, I felt that this hit you very hard. You were really afraid we were going to be there forever.
Well, we're still there. By the way, some of you in this room have served there and may serve again there, so we're still there as we are in Afghanistan. I mean, that is kind of the essence of my concern, is that I didn't think we had a strategy or plan for where's this going or why did we do it? And without getting into that whole debate again, because that's going on in South Carolina right now. But I made myself pretty clear and I voted for the resolution. But by the way, that resolution, and a lot of people have gone back and which I tell them to do, read the speech I gave on the floor of the Senate before that vote. And I explained why I was voting for that resolution. It wasn't a resolution to go to war. It was a resolution to authorize the president with authority to do what he needed to do if in the event all the diplomatic engagements and negotiations with the United Nations, like his father had done on Desert Storm, and all the other things had worked through, and they were never done.
To be clear, after 9/11, the move against Afghanistan, appropriate response or overkill?
No, I think it was appropriate response. We had to do that, but the mistake we made is we didn't do what we had to do to just initially help them where we could with building their own institutions rather than essentially just taking over everything. I mean, this room is full of parents, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's painful sometimes, but they got to learn. And unless you want to envision a United States where we're going to be there the same way we've been in South Korea since 1951, and that we were in Europe and still are, not the volumes and numbers. Now, if that's where you want to go, that's not what you told the American people. I mean, you told the American people we'd be in and out and give their government back to them. Now, if they can't govern, Afghanistan's got a pretty rugged history. There's never been a central government in the history of Afghanistan. I don't think we're going to impose that on them, and we've got as big a problem there as we've had in a long time today. And so, but I think the initial response was right, but we really had no strategy, we had no long-term planning, and I think the evidence of that is we went in 2001, it's 2016, we're still there, and the president's faced with the prospect of keeping probably the 10,000 troops he's got there now into next year as he leaves. I don't think that was the deal. Now, I recognize conditions changed, I get all that, but the bigger point is here, nations have got to govern themselves, their own institutions, their own ways. And we have interest, absolutely. But unless we're prepared to continue to keep 10, 15,000 troops there, and by the way, the Europeans and our NATO allies and our others are not, and they have about 5,000 troops there now, but that's not going to be sustained. And the billions of dollars that we're still putting in there every year. Now, if Americans are prepared to do that, that's one thing. But I think the general election will probably have something to say about that too. But I mean, this whole nonsense that we've been going through, masquerading as presidential debates, is a disgrace. But I think we'll sober up and sort it out as we go along here, I hope. We always do.
How do we battle ISIS? What is the constructive way to engage ISIS so that we are successful?
First, in my opinion, there is not a military solution to, I wouldn't even say the defeat of ISIS. I would say the destruction of ISIS, but also recognize that there will be another ISIS kind of thing. I mean, Al-Qaeda is still there, al-Nusra. There are a dozen very significant terrorist organizations out there. ISIS is the one now that's the most significant because it is the most significant. But to answer your question, it's got to be a combination of many things. First, coalitions. I talked about coalitions, alliances of common interests, of partnerships. ISIS is a threat to who? To every country in the Middle East. It's a threat to Turkey, although Turkey, as President Erdogan told me a year ago, and I've known President Erdogan since they first won the election in December 2002. I, President Erdogan, who speaks for Turkey, I don't consider ISIS as the greatest threat to Turkey. I consider the Kurds, our allies, to be the biggest threat. So you've got different dimensions of what is perceived as threat. So America can't go around to all these countries and say, this is our biggest threat, so therefore it's your biggest threat. No, it's not going to work. It is a threat to Turkey. It's a threat to Russia. Fundamental Islamic terrorist fundamentalism is as big a threat to Russia as Russia has. Just look at the history of Russia and that southern underbelly, the former Soviet republics, all those Asian countries. They're mainly Muslim countries where a lot of this emanates from in those borders. They're still they've still got huge problems in Chechnya and all these areas. It's a problem for China, not as immediate. So it's a problem for everybody. It's a problem for Europe. So to find the common denominators of a recognition of a common interest. Then it's economic, financial efforts to cut off every economic avenue that ISIS has. Not just oil. Oil is just but one. Black marketing, everything. Taxes on people. They take hostages for ransom. They rob banks. They have many sources of income. Stop that. But that can only be done internationally by bringing a coalition together. There is a military role here. Absolutely there is. The airstrikes are part of it. But it's got to be more than just America. Because this is fundamental and indigenous to the Middle East and the biggest threat to the Middle East and the people of the Middle East. It's a threat to us. It's a threat to all the rest of us. But it is an overpowering problem that's not going to go away because you're dealing with an ideology here that also uses the most expert forms of social media I've seen. ISIS is as adept at using social media as any country I've ever seen. They prey on the disaffected, the disconnected, the people who have been locked in cycles of despair their entire lives, no hope, no possibilities, no education, no jobs. And they're in all countries, by the way, in the United States too. And when you can communicate with them through our tremendous technology today, you can't fix that with bombing raids or 500,000 American troops somewhere. They're not going to work. You'll make it worse. So you've got to bring all of this together, Mark, in a strategic, political way that starts, and I got myself in trouble with this White House on that when a memo leaked that the New York Times picked up that I wrote saying essentially we have no political strategy on Syria. And I wasn't blaming anybody. I was part of the National Security Council, but we were coming at it in a tactical way. We weren't coming at it in a strategic way. We've lost tremendous credibility all over the world with our allies and our by the way, our adversaries watch this too. And we've got to come at this in a larger strategic way than we are. Now, is it complicated? Damn right. Does it take time? Yes. Is it a quick, glib Republican presidential candidate gong show stage answer? No. Carpet bombing the Middle East, yeah, that'll fix it. Yeah, that'll make us all safer.
Okay, I just wanted to say thanks for being here and your service to the country, and especially in Vietnam. But my name is Patrick Ziegler. I was a staff sergeant, redeployed from Iraq, my second tour. And I was on my way to OCS in Fort Benning. I was present at the terrorist attack at Fort Hood in 2009. And I was the worst wounded that survived that day at Fort Hood. I was shot right here on the side of the head. And I'd also like you to accept my challenge coin, which is the only staff sergeant challenge coin you'll ever get.